Hey everyone, there's a lot going on in the condo market in Panama City Beach, Seychelles specifically. The numbers are in for May. I want to go through those with you now. I'm Craig Duran with the Duran Group over at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Let's get right to it. This update is going to be a little bit longer than my normal one. There's a few extra things I wanted to throw in there that I think everyone needs to know about. First of all, what you're looking at here is a graph from a company called Showing Time. If you haven't seen this before, Showing Time is a company that real estate agents and offices use to schedule a showing appointment. So if a buyer comes to me and wants to see 5 condos, instead of calling 5 agents or texting 5 agents or what have you, we just use this system. It's a centralized system for communication for setting appointments. But what's nice about it is obviously it's collecting data for how many showing appointments are set versus how many showing appointments don't happen. So early on, when coronavirus pandemic hit, I wanted to really follow this because we knew that we were going to have fewer closings. We knew we were going to have less contracts written, but I wanted to watch and see at what point did people start to get out and look at real estate again. If you think about the process of buying or selling real estate or a condo, you have to have a closing, you have to have a contract. Buyer and seller have to agree. I know it's basic stuff. Well, for that to happen, a buyer has to get out and look and do research and think about what they want to buy. So this is a very good barometer or a good way for us to assess what might be happening 45 or 60 days from now in the market, since it takes 30 days or so to close, and we know it's anywhere from 30 to 90 days people are generally doing research and things like that. So early on in the pandemic, of course, we knew that March was going to do this. Fewer and fewer people were out looking at real estate. At the bottom, there was about an 85% spread from 2020 to 2019. There was 85% less activity happening. I was surprised that we started to move up this quickly and this dramatically. And if you look at where we are now in the state of Florida, we're really about even when you compare the level of showing activity in 2020 with 2019. So the next step of trying to understand the market is, are people writing contracts? It's one thing to just want to get out of the house and look at things, but are people actually making offers and writing contracts? We knew early on the same thing was going to happen there. The red line is the Panama City Beach condo marker. So this is the entire market. So the red line, obviously, we moved down quite a bit in March. We went from down 50%, a little bit of a comeback early in the month, but we ended up going down 72%, 38%, down to 79% at the bottom. In that week, we wrote 79% fewer contracts than we did in that same week in 2019. But as that showing, or maybe not surprising, as that showing line started to move up and people started to look at real estate again, they were actually doing deals. So we went from being down 79% to down 75% the next week, to down 58, down 46. We climbed to 10, only down 9, and now we're actually up. Considering where we are, I just before I started this video saw we got an email that Florida has moved into phase 2 of the reopening. So all of this has happened with vacation rental bans in place until very recently, still only being in phase 1. We're actually up in sales 2% year over year in the condo market in writing new contracts. So if you look at the overall market, and you guys know, I always laugh when I pull this up. You guys know that I love this chart, but it's important. Again, the red line represents the number of units for sale. And we know that, and we've been talking about that since 2018, we've been adding units to the market little by little, month over month. The black line represents the number of closings. At first glance, you can see this has sort of declined so far this year, not surprising with what's happened. Remember, months of inventory, 5 to 6 months of inventory has traditionally been neutral market. I would contend anymore that's sort of moved up to 4 to 5 months of inventory. It doesn't take as long to get marketing going now to sell a condo like it used to. So anything under about 4 or 5 months is seller market territory. That's where you hear about things like multiple offers, units selling very quickly, selling for over the asking price. The longer you stay there month over month in seller market territories where you see a lot of appreciation. When you stay in neutral market territory, prices generally stay flat. And the longer you stay in buyer market territory, at some point that's going to put pressure on pricing to come down. So we've been very, very hot market since 2018. We knew that. This is the entire Gulfront market, just the new buildings. This is only anything built since 2006. The older units, it's a different market. So we were scalding hot in 2018. We've cooled, but we've cooled again. You've heard me say this before. We've cooled to still a very, very strong seller's market. Recently, January, February, pre-coronavirus, we did touch neutral market territory. This has been coming for about 2 years now, that we've slowed to neutral market territory. Early in the year, January, February numbers can sometimes be a little softer than the rest of the year, just because you're writing contracts in December and January. So still not a terribly soft market. Obviously, these 2 months here are very, very soft. Very much we're in buyer market territory right now because of the coronavirus stuff. I can tell you what's not reflected here yet. There's a lot of activity in the last 2 weeks. What you're looking at here is directly related to the number of closings happening, which are tied to 30 or 45 days in the past. In the last 2 weeks, we've written a lot of contracts. The market is very, very active. It's tough to show a lot of units right now because just as active as we are with buyers, we have plenty of vacationers here. I think that the season is on steroids, it feels like. But it'll be interesting to see, and what we need to watch as buyers are buying more of these condos over the next couple months, and this number comes back down. Are we going to come back to neutral market territory? Or are we going to come back better than that? Or are we going to come back worse than that? The way things have been trending, you would think that we're still softening, or we have been. So if we pick up some sales and sales outpace the supply for a little bit, maybe this number comes down. I don't know if it's going to move down enough to get back into seller market territory. I think at best, maybe we see prices stay flat. If we linger a couple of months at some pretty high inventory numbers and we get into an off season and we linger there a little while longer, that may be the point where prices in the condo market finally have to give a little bit after years really of appreciation. So we'll really need to watch that. To look at Seychelles market in particular, with so few units, it's harder to look at that same chart and see where things are headed. But Seychelles, as you know, has been really, really hot through the ups and downs of all this. We did have one sale last month. One of the one bedrooms sold for $289,000. It was $1,207. Sold for $289. So there is some activity out there. A couple of things to remember, and I say this a lot this time of year, every year in the condo market. If you're thinking about selling, it's a very common mindset to sell at the end of rental season. I'm going to cash in all my heavy rental income, and then I'll sell it after that. So think about this. If it takes on average about 30 days to get to closing, and on average, it can take anywhere from, if you put a condo up for sale end of June, early July, and at best you got a contract the first day, if you got a contract the first day and you accepted it, you're probably pretty happy with the price. If the average closing is going to take about 30 days to get done, then you're looking at a closing already into August, most of your revenue. If you put a condo up for sale end of June, early July, and it takes 2 or 3 weeks to get a contract, now you're even deeper into August, maybe September before you're selling. So think about this. September and October are very good closing months for us in the condo market. We close a lot of units in those months. And that's coming from people who have been looking in the summer, somewhat frustrated. They can't get out and look at all the units they want to because they're really heavily rented. So come August and September, where there start to be more holes in the rental calendar, that's when they'll get out and take a look at the market and start writing some contracts. So there's some pent-up demand from June and July, and you almost get a little bit of that frenzy like you do at the beginning of the season. So if you're selling in 2020, think about targeting middle end of June to start your process. A good real estate agent is going to take a little bit of time to get professional photography, and depending on the rental schedules, that can be a challenge. It can take a little bit of time to build websites and all the marketing the right way. We signed paperwork with a seller last week on a condo that we're not going to be able to shoot until June 19th because of some rental restrictions on what rental companies are allowing on the turn. So we're lucky at best 3 weeks later to get real good photos on the market. We can do some marketing without the photos, but we all know we need great photos to see the inside for buyers to assess that. So think about starting your process a little earlier. I say this every year, but if you think that might be a little more important in 2020, think about the potential things that could happen third or fourth quarter this year. You got whatever potentially could happen with coronavirus, whatever you think could happen there, how that might affect slowdowns in markets. We have a presidential election. There's always a little volatility around that. You see that we've been on, and I only went back 2 years in the condo market, but we've really been on a good 7 or 8 year run in condo appreciation. And at some point, markets at least have to take a breath. Even a slight correction in a condo market, it could be 3, 4, 5%, 6, 8% on paper, which you could lose a lot of value there. We don't see or expect any kind of big crash in the condo market. There's too much equity, but we could see some pullback in pricing at some point if that buyer's market territory stays there too long. So it'll be interesting to see those numbers. I know that's a lot to digest. Really, the biggest thing for me, besides helping you guys understand that we're in a bit of a frenzied condo market right now, is just that if you are thinking about selling in any given year, think about starting your process a little sooner than you might. All these buyers that sit in other areas doing their research, that are making plans for August or September to come down and look at units, are already researching in June and July, deciding what they're going to look at, what they're not going to look at. So it's important to get it out there a little earlier than you feel like you might. Could be really important in 2020. Hope you guys find this helpful. I hope everyone is doing well. We'll be in touch next month to see how much we've recovered. I expect it's going to be pretty good. Stay safe.